The kingdom of Arendor was a land without sunlight. Dark clouds had covered its skies for centuries, and only the red glow of the moon lit the world below. In this shadowed realm stood the Citadel of Thorns, home of Lord Kale, the Alpha Vampire, ruler, conqueror, and curse-bearer. Once, Kale's kind had been feared by kings and worshipped by mortals. But those days were gone. His people were dying, their bloodlines had thinned, and no new children had been born in 100 years. They were immortals who could not create life, trapped between eternity and extinction. Kyle stood on the high balcony of his citadel, looking over the valley drowned in mist. His armor gleamed black like obsidian. His crimson eyes held centuries of grief. He whispered into the wind, "Eternity means nothing if it ends in silence." For years he searched for a way to break the curse that made his kind barren. He sought the help of witches, seers, even fallen angels, but all had failed him. Then one night, in the dust-covered pages of an ancient book, he found a forgotten prophecy. It spoke of a union between blood and stone, a bond between immortal life and the strength of the earth itself. From that union a new race could rise, one strong enough to end the curse. But such a bond could only be formed between two beings of great power, one who commands blood and one who commands the mountain. The prophecy named her Era of the Peaks, the last of the mountain giants. Era lived alone in the high ranges of Mount Varen, far above mortal lands. She was a creature of stone and sky, tall as the ancient towers, her skin pale as moonlight, her hair long and silver like falling frost. Her eyes glowed faintly blue like winter stars. Once, her kind had ruled the mountains, protecting the balance of nature. But greed and war had destroyed them all. Now she remained, the last of her people, the lonely queen of snow. Era had seen no one in centuries. The silence of the peaks had become her home. She sang to the wind, and it answered her like a friend. Her heart had turned cold, but inside a quiet sadness lived, a memory of laughter, of a world that once knew warmth. One night, while she sat beside a frozen lake, she felt something stir in the air, a pulse of dark power. The sky turned red as the moon rose higher, and from the mist came the sound of hooves and armor. Era stood, her shadow towering across the snow. From the fog, Kale appeared, cloaked in black, his eyes glowing like burning coals. The mountain wind howled between them as they faced each other, blood and stone, ancient enemies bound by prophecy. Era's voice rolled like thunder. "Why does a child of night come to my mountain? Have you not taken enough from this world?" Kale bowed slightly, though pride burned in his eyes. "I did not come to take, Lady of the Peaks. I came to ask." Her brow furrowed. "Ask from me?" He met her gaze steadily. "I need a husband," he said, his tone calm, though beneath it a trace of sadness lingered. "And you need strong children?" Era blinked, silent for a long moment. Then a deep laugh escaped her, echoing through the mountain like an earthquake. "You are bold, vampire. Or foolish. What makes you think I need anything at all?" Kale's voice softened. "Because I can feel your loneliness as clearly as you can feel mine." The laughter died in her throat. For the first time in centuries, her heart trembled. She stared at him, this small, fragile creature compared to her size. Yet his words pierced her like a blade. Kyle told her of his curse, of the fading bloodlines and his desperate wish to preserve what little hope remained. He spoke of his search, of the prophecy, of how the union of their powers could bring new life into both their dying worlds. Era listened in silence, her eyes cold yet full of thought. When he finished, she turned away. "Do you even understand what you ask?" she said softly. "My kind perished because of unions like that. The gods forbid the mingling of blood and stone." "I no longer bow to gods," Kale said. "They abandoned us long ago." There was strength in his words, but also pain. Something in his voice and a quiet ache reminded Era of the songs her people once sang. For the first time in an age, she saw not a monster, but a soul burdened by endless time. "Stay the night," she said at last, "but if you speak one lie, I will turn you into dust." Kyle nodded once. "I have no lies left to tell." Inside her cavernous hall, carved from crystal and ice, they sat before a great fire. Era's form shimmered in the glow, her hair reflecting gold and blue light. Kale watched her with cautious wonder. He felt something he hadn't felt in centuries, peace. They spoke of their worlds. Kale told her of the endless wars of men, of palaces drowned in blood and regret. Ira spoke of the mountains, of silence and snowfall, of memories carved in stone. The more they talked, the more the distance between them faded, not in size but in spirit. Kyle saw that Ira's loneliness was a mirror of his own. Her pride was a shield much like his armor, meant to protect a heart that had been broken too many times. "Why do you hide here?" he asked gently. "Because every time I stepped into the world," she said, "it reminded me that I have no place in it." He looked into the fire. "Then let us build a place that belongs to neither world, and to both." Ira said nothing. But for the first time in a long while, she did not feel the cold. The days passed. Kale stayed longer than he meant to. Each night they walked beneath the stars. He told her old stories and she laughed, a sound that shook snow from the cliffs. When she smiled, Kale felt his dead heart stir. He began to wonder if the curse could be broken not by rituals but by something far simpler, by feeling alive again. Yet he hid his growing affection. He feared it would frighten her or worse, and that the gods would punish them both. Still, the bond between them deepened. The blood and the stone began to call to each other in ways neither could explain. When she placed her hand near him, the ground would hum faintly and his body would grow warm despite his cold nature. Their energies intertwined, softly, unknowingly, dangerously. But the peace did not last. Far below the mountain, Kale's enemies stirred. The Vampire Council had learned of his disappearance. They feared his plan, feared that he might unite his power with the giant's legacy and create something stronger than them all. They sent hunters to find him. The mortal priests of the sun also began to move, believing the prophecy spoke of the world's end. And high above, in the heart of the mountain, something older than both Kale and Ira began to wake. A dark presence, a sleeping god, whose curse once bound Kale's bloodline. Ira felt it first, a tremor deep beneath her feet, a whisper in the stone. Kyle saw it in her eyes and knew the danger was coming. "We must leave," he said. "The curse will not allow us peace." She shook her head. "You came seeking strength, vampire. Do not run now." "I came seeking life," Kyle said quietly. "But if staying means losing you, then I would rather have death." Her breath caught. No one had ever said such words to her, not since her people fell. She wanted to believe him. But she also knew what the curse could do. That night, under the red moon, Kale took her hand. Their fingers, in one of blood, one of stone, were intertwined. The earth trembled. Light surged from their touch, red and silver blending into one. The magic of their union awakened something ancient. The mountain roared. The fire dimmed. From deep within the earth came a voice, cold, thunderous, filled with wrath. "You defy the order of the gods. Blood shall not love stone." The ground cracked beneath them. Kale was thrown back, his body burning with crimson fire. The curse, long dormant, had found him again. His skin glowed with pain, his veins turning black. Ira screamed his name, rushing to his side. She tried to hold him, but the energy scorched her hands. He reached out, his voice trembling. "Don't let me become the monster they made me again." And then his eyes closed. The mountain shook with fury. Snow fell from the peaks like tears from the heavens. Ira cradled his body, her own heart breaking for the first time in centuries. Above them, the red moon split the clouds, bathing them both in light, as if the world itself watched in sorrow. The god's voice echoed again. "Blood must die, or stone must break." And the last sound that filled the night was Ira's cry, powerful, heart-shaking, and full of something the world had long forgotten. Love. Snow fell in silence after the roar faded. The mountain slept again, but not in peace. The god beneath the stone had awakened, and the curse had been reborn. Ira sat in the ruins of her great hall, holding Kale's still body in her arms. His face was pale, his veins dark with the mark of the curse. The light of the fire danced on his closed eyes, and she wished, for the first time, that she could give him warmth. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Please, wake up. You said you came for life, not death." The wind did not answer. Only the deep hum of the mountain replied, heavy and sorrowful. Then faintly she heard it, a heartbeat. Slow, weak, but still there. Kyle was alive, but his body was changing. The curse was trying to reclaim him, twisting his soul back toward darkness. Era looked toward the cavern below, where she could feel the god's voice rumbling in her bones. The curse had a source, and she knew where to find it. If she wished to save Kale, she had to face the being who had doomed them both. She laid Kale gently on the stone floor and covered him with her fur cloak. Then, with a last look, she whispered, "Do not give up on me." And she began the descent into the mountain's heart. The descent, the path down was old, carved by her ancestors before the world was young. The air grew hot and heavy as she moved deeper. Shadows crawled along the walls and whispers followed her, the voices of long-dead giants. "Era of the Peaks," they called softly. "Why do you seek the one who broke us?" "I seek to save what is left," she answered, "even if it costs me everything." Finally, she reached a vast cavern glowing with molten light. In its center rose a black throne made of bone and crystal. Upon it sat the god of ruin, the one who had cursed the vampires long ago. His form was half shadow, half flame, his eyes like two dying stars. When he spoke, the ground trembled. "So the last child of stone dares to walk into my fire." Era stood tall despite her fear. "You cursed the blood drinkers. You made them barren. I ask you to undo it." The god's laughter shook the cavern. "Undo it? Why?" "Their hunger destroyed the balance. They stole what was sacred. I gave them eternity so they could watch their own emptiness. Then why awaken now?" she asked, his gaze deepened. "Because you have broken the old law, child of stone. Blood and stone must never join. Your touch has stirred what was buried. I do not fear you," she said, though her hands trembled. "If you wish to destroy him, you will have to destroy me as well." The god leaned forward, his flame rising higher. "Would you trade your immortal strength for a creature who drinks life to live?" Era's voice broke, but her heart was steady. "He is more alive than I have ever been." The god grew silent. For a moment, the cavern seemed to breathe. Then he raised one great hand and opened it. A glowing shard appeared, the heart of the mountain, the source of her people's power. "Take it," the god said, "but know the price. To heal him, you must give up your essence. Your heart will become part of the mountain forever. You will never walk again." Era looked down at her hands. Strong, scarred, and cold. For centuries they had built, fought, and carried the weight of her kind. Now they would carry something else, love. She took the heart and whispered, "Then let the mountain remember me." The god's laughter faded into silence. The light dimmed, and she turned back toward the surface. The dream of the vampire. While Era was gone, Kale drifted between worlds. He stood in a field of endless night, surrounded by echoes of his past. The wars he had fought, the people he had slain, the thrones he had taken and lost. Around him voices whispered, "Monster, cursed, unworthy." He fell to his knees, clutching his chest. "I tried to change. I tried." From the darkness a shape appeared, his younger self, the cruel alpha who had once ruled through fear. The reflection smiled coldly. "You sought to rule death, Kale. Now you are ruled by it." Kale turned away. "Not anymore. I found something stronger. Love." The shadow mocked. "Do you think love can change what you are?" Kale's eyes hardened. "It already has." The shadow laughed and vanished. The field faded and Kale awoke to pain, burning sharp and real. But through it he felt warmth. Someone was near. The heart of the mountain Era returned, wounded and weak, but carrying the glowing heart. The light pulsed with her life. She knelt beside Kale, who lay motionless, his body covered in frost and blood. She placed her hand on his chest and whispered an ancient song, the same song her mother once sang to the earth. The heart glowed brighter. Its light entered Kale's body, spreading through his veins like golden fire. He gasped and opened his eyes. They were no longer crimson, but golden, bright like the dawn. "Era," he whispered. "What did you do?" She smiled faintly. "I gave you what you came for, life." He tried to sit up, but she stopped him. Her hands were turning to stone, her skin hardening like marble. "No," he said, horror filling his voice. "You can't, I already have," she said softly. "My time was long over, Kale. Yours is beginning." The mountain shook again. Outside, thunder rolled, not from storms, but from armies. The vampire council and mortal priests had found them. They came with fire and blades, shouting that the cursed must die. Kale rose, feeling life rush through him for the first time in centuries. He could feel his heartbeat, fragile, human, and beautiful. But when he looked at Era, he saw her fading, her body turning into the same stone that shaped the mountain. He took her hand. Then we faced them together, she smiled, until the last breath. The battle of blood and stone. The armies stormed the mountain slopes, shouting prayers and curses. Lightning flashed across the sky. Kale stood at the gate, his sword drawn, golden light burning in his eyes. He no longer needed darkness, he fought for light. Beside him, Era raised her hand. The ground trembled, and walls of stone rose from the earth, shielding them both. The mortals screamed, but Kale's voice cut through the chaos. Go back. The age of curses is ending. No one listened. They came like waves, desperate and afraid. Kale fought fiercely, but his body was mortal now. Each wound cut deep, each blow slowed him. Yet he did not stop. Every time he faltered, he felt Era's power guiding him, her strength flowing through the stones, protecting him. As the battle raged, the god's voice echoed again from beneath the mountain. You cannot change what is written. Era's voice answered, soft but strong. Then I will rewrite it with my heart. She raised both arms to the sky. The mountain roared. Light burst from her chest, the last of her essence flowing into Kale. The earth itself rose, swallowing the armies, ending the war in a flood of stone and light. When the silence returned, the world was still. Kale looked beside him. Era's body had turned to stone, her face calm and peaceful, her hand frozen in midair as reaching toward him. He fell to his knees, tears falling freely. You gave me life, and I could not give it back. He placed his hand on hers, now cold rock. Then I will spend the rest of my days guarding the mountain that holds your heart. The years after time passed. The war ended. The vampire curse was gone. Their kind could now live and bear children. Kale, no longer immortal, became a wise and quiet king. He built a small kingdom at the foot of Mount Varen, where both mortals and vampires lived in peace. Every morning, he climbed the mountain to the same place where Era once stood and watched the sunrise. No one else could see it, but he could feel her presence, in the wind, in the earth, in the quiet strength of the stones. The people whispered stories about the Stone Queen who saved the world, and the vampire king who loved her. But to Kale it was not a legend. It was a promise. The final scene, the pulse beneath the stone many years later. Kale, now old and gray, stood before the mountain once more. The world had changed, the air warmer, the sky clearer. Life had returned. He pressed his hand against the rock where her hand was once frozen.
I have kept my word, Era. The world is healed.
But without you it is quiet. He closed his eyes. A tear fell. The wind whispered his name. And then he felt it, a faint tremor. A pulse beneath the stone thump. Thump, thump. His eyes widened. The sound was soft but steady, like a heartbeat. The mountain glowed faintly with silver light. A voice gentle as snow echoed through the wind. Kale. I remember, he smiled, tears shining in the dawnlight. The sun rose higher, golden and new, touching both the stone and his face. The last words of the story echoed through the valley. Love does not end. It only changes shape. And somewhere deep beneath the earth, the heart of the giant beat once, slow, steady, waiting for the day he would return.